Vibhor, my brother, how are you? How is the valley of the AI, cerebral valley, they call it these days?
It's great. I'm doing good. Good to be with you on this show. And yeah, the Valley is kind of like a kid in a candy store. I moved here 10 years back, and it seems there's always something exciting that's cooking. Sometimes it's hype, sometimes it's reality. So you're always navigating those two.
For people that don't know you, Vibhor, you and I go a long way back, even from Microsoft days. Give a 2 minute background just on your career arc. Not so much about individual roles, but where did you start? How do you go? So they get a sense for how Vibhor has evolved over the decades. Well,
Yeah.
you're 21 years old, so it's only 2 decades.
That's funny. Yes, absolutely happy to talk about that. So I went to engineering school and I was really fired about the idea of communicating to customers about the value of technology. So I spent several years in a sales role. And then I had an inflection point where I said, oh, I really don't understand what my customers want. And I'm selling these solutions to them. So I really need to be on the other side of the table implementing technology. So I went there with a game plan that I'll do that for a few years. And I ended up spending about 10, 15 years building technology products, helping drive change, communicating that change, bringing teams along because, technology change also always comes with process change. And after having done that, I was really attracted to the notion of marketing. Marketing went through a significant change around 1 to 2 decades back, where it became a left brain and a right brain exercise. It was as much about data and analytics and experimentation and fast iteration as it was all the creative things we've known marketing for. And that basically got into the realm of marketing. And that's the space I have stayed in, not necessarily always in the marketing function, but in that space for the last 15 plus years. Now, my age is certainly upwards of 35.
Okay, we're going to call it 21 plus 3, 24. That's good enough. More, tell us about your current role and tell us about AI in that role. First, talk to us about how you're using AI personally and how is it affecting the ad space.
Yep, absolutely. So I work at a company called AdRoll. We are a programmatic advertising platform, and we basically work with brands and agencies, and we do what we say a full funnel multi-channel marketing, which is you think about the upper funnel and the lower funnel in the marketing journey. You think about all the channels through which you want to engage audiences, and we help brands and agencies help them reach new customers and help them grow prospects. So that's at our core what we are. We're an advertising tech company. How does AI play into our company, into my role? So there is two aspects really when we think about AI. We've been a data and machine learning company for the last 15 years that we have existed. If you think about advertising technology at its core, there's a lot of bid stream and ad engagement data, which we started to gather over the last 15 years. We've built a data sciences team. We have our own large language model. But the cool factor of AI has certainly put a lot of that in spotlight. So now dialing down in terms of how do we use AI? We use AI at its core in terms of making predictions on open web about an ad that's being served and its relevance to the audience we are trying to serve at. There's a lot
Mhm.
of math and data goes in terms of understanding the audience need and matching that audience need and the brand's performance measure, whether it's a CPM or it's a CPC goal, to what the publisher is providing. The publisher in
Got it.
this case could be an HBO on a connected TV service. It could be a Tubi on a ad-supported service, or it could be a New York Times or CNN.com. So that's how we use it in our product. We also use it in our own business, right? Because
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the core, we are also an organization. And we use it exactly the way you would expect any modern organization to use it, which is we use it in our AI, in our workflows, in our marketing workflows. We are actively thinking and exploring ways we can use it in customer success. So I would say in all the functions which involve creation and production, as well as all the functions where there are, I would say, more repeatable processes, which could be made more efficient. You could get massive scale from them. We certainly have built a lot of AI capability from a conversational assistant standpoint in our product, where if you want to create a campaign, you want to understand the performance of a campaign, you want to drive optimizations, you can do that through a conversational interface, which is much more natural language based than wanting to press buttons or turn tinkering of different dials that you may expect in a web app first solution.
So one of the first things I want to ask you, we'll go through this step by step, is how did you prioritize where should you apply AI? I know there are some business imperatives sometimes. Sometimes there are technical folks saying, hey, we can use AI for A, B, C, D, E. How did you guys go about saying, yeah, we should put some wood behind this arrow, this project versus that? Because right now, what I hear from a lot of CIOs, product managers is, I could apply AI everywhere. And then there's a little bit of paralysis or there's a little bit of constant experimentation. Nothing really goes to production. How did you guys think about that?
Yep. Certainly, there have been several factors, and these were based out of insights that we have about our product, about what our customers do, gathering data from all of the customer conversations we have. But I think there is one underlying theme across all of those that is important to emphasize, which is how do you synthesize information and massive sets of data that we have created? I really feel we've gone through three phases of evolution in the last several decades. There was a point in time when we were seeing immense scale in software development. You were building lots of features and capability. And then we kind of had a phase where design was so important. And design was important because it became so hard for you to interact with all the capabilities that a software was putting in front of you. And now we're looking at it and saying, wow, we have gathered so much data that it's impossible for a human to synthesize that intelligently. And let me make it more tangible. So often our customers that are running their campaigns at scale are
Yeah.
running tens and hundreds of campaigns, and they're running them across geographies, they're running them across different industry verticals, and they are running them with different objectives. And if you think of a performance marketer on their end, for them to make intelligent decisions about optimizing those campaigns becomes very hard very quickly because you are trying to interpret, oh, I have this campaign that's running. It has reach, it has performance, and yeah, I
Yeah.
have certain tolerance for what I've set up. And then I have another campaign. Where can I move my budget within a set of guardrails? These are decisions our customers struggle with because they're
And
running
there
these.
are agencies or brands. They're still saying, okay, I've got, let's say, for example, I've got this outcome I want to hit. Let's say, for example, it is a Coke, and they've got a specific outcome that they want to hit. That may be number of visual impressions, or maybe, well, let's take a specific example of Nike, and they say, I want to have so much of revenue from shoes or something. So that means they've got this $100 to spend. Now they've got to make smart decisions about which ones can have the effect to get to their desired outcome. And that planning AI, mostly bid based and everything else was manual. Now we are trying to move that to AI.
100%. And it is, you could see different dimensions of this, both across brands and agencies. Certainly, larger brands like Coke or Nike may work with agencies because they have massive scale across multiple SKUs and multiple geographies. But if you think about the middle market, even in the
Yeah.
middle market, businesses and brand and agencies both struggle with this level of decision making. And this is because you have so many channels now that you need to spend your paid media budget across. You want to have hyper personalization. And if you're in the middle market and above, there may be group-based decision making. And what Mukund cares about as a chief technology officer versus what Vibhor cares about as, say, a CFO might be very different, right? And you want those messages to be personal. And then you tend to have a lot of product SKUs as well. So now when you're thinking about product capability that starts to expand, geographies, verticals, personalization of messages, multiple media sources or media channels, you're going to say, wow, this is a lot. How do I make smarter decisions? So that's
It's also very complicated, right? It gets super complicated very quick. It's not like as you get into it, get more complicated. Now you've got to think about media mix and yeah, these are millions of dollars of multi-million dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of decisions.
Yep, absolutely. And coming back to your question, all we were trying to do here is say, hey, where do we have massive amounts of data where it's really hard for you to do smart decision making, synthesize, and have a conversational agent which will say, hey, I feel you should move your budget from campaign X to campaign Y based on these parameters and be able to establish those guardrails with the AI agent that you can do the budget shifting or evolve other aspects of the campaign, whether it's creative or message intelligently. We're not there yet, but that's what we are building for because that's where I think the biggest pain is felt. There is certainly
Right
other
now, this is
AI.
all being done human, right? Right now, most of this is being done by humans.
Most platforms today give you ability to do create campaigns in an AI first manner. And that is mostly value is in terms of process efficiency, right? You can look at templated campaigns, you can kickstart them, you don't have to set those parameters. But I think the net value add from all the capability and the developments we've seen with generative AI over the last 2, 3 years, the biggest impact of that is in synthesis of information and making smarter decisions in collaboration with whether it's a co-pilot or an assistant.
Got it. Let me ask you something about tech overall. I mean, for people that don't know it, it's extremely complicated. Um, right? There's so many different platforms you can choose from. There are so many different terminologies. As you can expect, it's $1 trillion opportunity or maybe multi-billion dollar opportunity, 600, 900 million, whatever it is. So it gets to be very complicated very quickly. There's DSPs, SSPs. There's not a term that I wouldn't remember that I wouldn't know anything about, right? Do you see the progression and adoption of AI rapid in your industry? And what do you think that does to the ability for people to be able to manage it more effectively, number one. And number two, what about hallucination? Let's talk about the first piece first. It's a complicated industry. Most people spend a lifetime looking at it and still don't understand it end to end. So does AI impact a lot of the different aspects? Which are the aspects in the supply chain or whatever you want to call it, value chain, that are most likely to first show impact, and then ones that are least likely to show impact?
Yep, that's a great question. I don't know if I have honestly predictions about how all of this will unfold, but I'm happy to talk about it at least from my own personal standpoint. So if you look at the ad tech ecosystem, you have multiple participants in the ecosystem. On one end, you have brands and advertisers, and on the other end, you have content publishers.
Yeah.
And in the midst, you have demand side platforms, which is platforms like us that work with the brands and agencies. And then you have supply side platforms, which work with content publisher. And then there are a lot of intermediaries that bring the demand side and supply side together. That itself sounds super complicated, right? So I think there is opportunity for AI to improve productivity and impact across all frontiers. But where I think there's most interesting dynamic
Yeah.
is perhaps on both ends of the spectrum, which is how will brands and agencies make smart choices about uh, identifying audiences, about campaigns that they want to run, about performance expectations from those campaigns. Let's
Mhm.
think about anything from return on ad spend to CPC to CPMs, because there is so much data and there is so much opportunity for you to personalize. That's the beauty of AI, right? It gives you, when you get productivity and you get so many signals, you can do greater personalization. On the other end of the spectrum, where you have content publishers. I find it fascinating in terms of what's going to happen there because there are lots of vectors on them. The vectors are, you think about any publisher, which is a web publisher, or let's say a TV publisher, which is this place where we spend most of our time on. There are a lot of headwinds and macro factors. There is the rise of the walled gardens, and think about any of the social media channels as the walled gardens, and people are spending more time there.
So the
But
Instagrams of the world or the Reddits of the world, Reddit does want to play nice with everybody, etc. They're just saying,
yep,
stay
yep,
here, don't go anywhere else.
yep. But the content publishers in the past have always relied on revenue from advertising.
Mhm.
And now they are in a world where they're having to reimagine their business model, not necessarily because of AI, but a collective set of macro factors to say, oh, how much should I lean on advertising as my revenue source? How do I lean in on high quality editorial and journalism content that people will pay me for it, right? They're trying to create an ad supported.
Subscriptions.
Yep. And the same dynamic exists in this massive content proliferation world on even television. So they have to reimagine their business model in terms of the mix of advertising and paid subscription model. And I think that's a very exciting space where there's going to be lots of reinvention. I was recently reading a post, and I'm not going to quote from where, which said advertising has been like cockroaches, which is from the time that you actually have physical
Always
publication.
survive.
It has always survived and reinvented itself. And I'm part of the industry too, right? And I'm saying like, yeah, that's a very interesting analogy. I'm very excited to see if the cockroaches are going to thrive in this next phase. And at an event, and I even wrote a little LinkedIn post to say, yeah, I'm really observing carefully what do content publishers do because there's lots of opportunity for innovation whenever there's disruption. Um, I think you had a question, one more follow-up question. I lost
I think
my,
part of the question is let's go through this portion of it, right? Which is the interesting part. So AI is going to change quite a bit. Content publishers are trying to figure out how they can diversify revenue streams other than advertising. Ad tech itself is a fairly complicated space. We've established that. There's AI being used in a lot of different spaces within that itself. Now, when content itself becomes something that is AI generated, and AI optimizes the ad that is placed on the content, it seems to me that the only thing we need as the buyer and someone producing or the seller, everybody else is going to automate the hell out of everything as much as they can. Then what happens?
yeah. I think what happens then, I'm going to go conceptual for a minute, is we need to think about um, AI generated content as a way to break the inertia of creativity. But that does not necessarily mean that that's the end of marketers or the end of the role of brands in understanding their audiences. They have better tools to do it, but I think it's going to
Mhm.
put emphasis back on creativity and authenticity. And it's going to put emphasis back on putting attention on who am I?
And
What am
data.
I solving for? So,
Creativity, emphasis, and data. I also think that data is going to be very huge, right? Because if you might as well do something that is going to move the needle on the campaign for you, not just let's do ads because we're going to win the Cannes Award for ads.
yes, absolutely. We talked a little bit about this in Cannes as well, and I think this was a conversation that the value of your message, your idea, your authenticity as a brand is going to become
Mhm.
so much more important because, yes, all the creative tools, whether you're talking about Adobe Firefly, you're talking about Runway, you're talking about Sora, they will all give you massive scale in terms of content production.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic, but you need to also spend time on sort of the fundamentals of who you are, what am I solving for, who am I, what's my identity, what's my value proposition. So I think the emphasis on that becomes even much more important than there was on it 2 years back and prior. So I would say content velocity gives you the power, but you also now have the responsibility. Power with power comes responsibility, right? As a marketer, it's upon you to be understanding your audiences in depth. And you have that as a tool, right? You can understand your audiences, you can do segmentation of your audiences in multiple ways, you can understand product engagement. So all of that is good, but that's where I think the world has to move. I also think there's lots of things you can do on process.
Mm,
You're talking about it. Um, I feel that if you think about a marketing organization, you do a lot of deep understanding of who you are. Then you do content production. We talked about those aspects of marketing being impacted by AI. But then post-production, there's a lot of marketing workflows that every organization has. I
mm,
create an artifact. Based on that artifact, I create a social media post, or I want to understand how that post is performing, and I want to use that as a signal to inform my next post. I may want a demo booking agent, right? There are so many business workflows inside of the marketing function. And I think one other holy grail which is very interesting to look at from an AI lens, is how can I massively scale these processes? Because there is a lot of mundane, repetitive work. So you've been in the industry, so there's a concept of if this, then that. We would talk about it in the context of robotic process automation. Sorry to throw so many jargons, about 4 or 5 years back, right? Now, with AI, specifically in sales and marketing, you can automate a lot of those workflows. I don't know if you have checked out relay.app. They actually have a fantastic library and they have, which is talking to their leadership team and they're doing some really great, interesting work, which we want to bring into my own marketing organization too. And we're exploring how do we go do that because we want to do creative work, we want to do deep work, and we want to make the mundane go away. And I think just one last thought on that, which is you have to not just slap that AI workflow onto existing business process. And this is what I've learned over multiple decades,
yeah.
which is you have to reimagine your workflow from an AI first standpoint. Because if you take and say, I have an existing workflow where I do these 5 things and I put AI on it, you're only going to get marginal benefits and you'll be very soon like, meh, that was like a meh.
I
So,
understand. Let me
yeah.
ask you something. Actually, I was going to say, just let me finish that one thought because I wanted to tell you, because you mentioned Relay and AI, right? I have, until about 3 months ago, I had four people doing my editing of the videos. They would then convert that into a transcript and take it into a AI solution to give me a blog post out of it, repurposing the content for LinkedIn, repurposing the content for X, make it into multiple posts, completely automated with an A10. Completely automated with an A10.
Love it.
Don't have a single person right now doing that.
Love
Right?
it.
I automated it. I use an A. I mean, you've heard of N8N, which is the solution that does automations, right? Another thing that I completely automated that I don't have to worry about anymore on an ongoing basis. I built about three or four different custom GPTs that take the transcripts from my conversations, convert that into insights that I can then build into my process and say, hey, this was mentioned by this person at this time. Do you want to pull that one here? So the
Mhm.
custom GPTs give me prompts and notifications on you're trying this, but remember this conversation from this time. So now recall becomes better.
Yep, I love it. I love it. And I think every leader has to prioritize what they're doing. I feel really good about what we have done in terms of building AI in our product. In
Mm,
the next frontier where we are going and going even deeper, and I was in another CMO huddle where we were talking about this, is most people are think product first, but then we have to think, yeah, our own internal business processes and workflow too. And that's kind of where I'm going. So if anybody on my team is listening to this, they know that we are about to go embark on effort in this coming quarter, which started yesterday.
The cobbler's son
I
needs to wear
will,
shoes.
yes, I absolutely. And I will say that we might learn something from you guys. So I'm going to be pinging you afterwards to see if we can embrace some similar processes.
Yeah, so we've done that. We've done complete automation of our LinkedIn outbound outreach, complete automation of our email outbound outreach. In-base incoming demos have been going to N8N. They take our core product, create a custom demo, completely automated. So the demo that we show to each customer will be with technology, it is customized. So
Fantastic.
I don't need to go have a person sit and give that demo. We can just say, here's your custom demo with your data. So we go to
Mhm.
the person's website, we take 10 of their customers, then we put that into our system and we say, if you had to get this into your CRM system, this is what it would look like. Yeah,
Great.
you could do fun things. That's the fun part. On that note, thank you for being here, Vibhor. It was awesome having you, and always, maybe 6 months or less, we'll check back in with you. You're going through the next 6 months, I'm sure, going through your internal processes and AI-fying it, if you want to call it that. But it'll be good to have you again in about 6 months.
Absolutely. Pleasure was mine. Thank you, Mukul.
Thanks, brother.